This is part 2 of my interview with Ventura City Manager Bill Ayub. If you missed part 1, make sure that you go back and watch that, as well as watching this. We covered a lot of ground, and I think that you're going to find this video very interesting. I want to touch on the Rails to Trails project. I know that this has gotten a bit of a spotlight recently. Can you just tell the viewers what is the Rails to Trails project, kind of what is the goal there, and then how does that fit into the larger active transportation plan for the city of Ventura?
Yeah, so the city of Ventura recently adopted its active transportation plan. We have a lot of plans for different things. Active transportation would be walking, biking, sort of the green movement throughout the city, where you can. The goal being that Ventura is a walkable town, and it is, but we're going to make it better, and this is part of making it better. The Rails to Trails projects, we just had a ribbon cutting this morning over at West Park, off of the west end of Ventura near Sheridan School, and this is a update and upgrade to the river bike trail. So we had a bike trail, along the Ventura River for years. There's updating that needs to be done, and additional pathways and access points and art and interpretive plaques and so forth that are being added to the project. This is a 1.8 mile, $5 million project that's going to improve active transportation in Ventura. We have other projects around town as well. The Santa Paula Branch Rail project that is a 4-mile project over from Montalvo to the East End. Okay. That'll encourage biking and walking and hiking, running, all those things that Ventura is so well known for.
Will there be any safety features involved with that, just to make sure that, if my wife wants to take my 2 boys for a walk down that path once it is eventually built, is there anything there to keep things safe?
Yeah, there's fencing and lighting. We have solar lighting that's going to be installed at many of the sites. The updating will improve safety through added visibility, through improved surfaces to ride and walk along. So that's always a concern for us, accessibility to those spots, the ADA ramps and to make sure that all members of the community can access the trails. But safety is a paramount thing. We want our police officers to be able to access those areas as well, so they can provide public safety deterrence and support for those that enjoy using the recreation that Ventura offers.
That's great. On that topic of safety, I do want to touch on homelessness. So I've been showing properties recently here in town. We're in our spring market. We're seeing a lot more buyer activity. The buyers that I'm talking to that are coming from out of the area, whether it's Los Angeles County, up in the Bay Area, or also from out of state, a common question that I get is about homelessness. What is the level of the homelessness issue here in town? What is the city doing to address it and keep the community safe? Can you just provide a few comments on that?
Yeah, a big topic in town. Ventura has always been known for its homeless population. Back to when I was a child, we had hobo jungle at the Ventura River mouth. That's what we called it. Okay. But Ventura, I mentioned, it's kind of got a laid-back vibe. It's a mild weather. It's a good place to be homeless if you choose that lifestyle. It's a difficult problem. I mentioned I came from law enforcement, and the homeless population was a large user of the resources from the work that I did. Here we certainly have a law enforcement presence. We have a team that's dedicated specifically to the homeless population, and not dedicated to arresting them and finding and incarcerating, but to problem solving. There's a component of violence in that community, and danger and uncertainty. You have a lot of mental illness, a lot of substance abuse. The homeless often are armed in some fashion, some kind of cutting implement, or a bludgeon, or in some cases firearms. So we have that on the enforcement, the public safety side. On the prevention side, we have programs that are designed to keep people out of homelessness. If somebody comes across hard times, they lose their source of income, they have a catastrophic illness, some kind of life-changing event, there are opportunities for them to get funding to help bridge that gap that's created by that life event, so that they don't lose their apartment or their home or their automobile or some kind of conveyance or thing that might propel them into homelessness. So there's an effort there on the prevention side. There's also many nonprofits in the community that do similar type of work that we collaborate with. We also have a housing services team that works hand in glove with the police department with the prevention side. They work on providing support and the resources for those experiencing homelessness to get the support that they need to get them out of it. It's a very complex problem. In some cases there's therapy required, others there's financial support, and others there's substance abuse, there's food dependency issues, medical care. And so bringing all those resources to bear, providing a supportive system through faith-based community, through the nonprofits that do that sort of work, seems to be the right approach. We've seen our point-in-time count for Ventura's homeless population drop by double-digit percentages for the last 2 years in a row. And so I can't help but think that we're doing something right through creating housing opportunities at our homeless shelter on Knoll Drive, through our permanent supportive housing at the La Quinta project on Victoria, our work with the Housing Authority to make those things come to life and be successful to fulfill one component of that kind of global approach to addressing the issue.
That's encouraging to know. I was unaware about that, so that's really great to hear. Thank you. Let's talk about road conditions, if you don't mind. I live on the East End. I take Bristol frequently. Okay. I'm very happy to see that Bristol's been resurfaced. That's great. Does the city have the money to continue to improve the roads and get us to a level where everyone is moderately happy with the condition of the roads?
Yeah. Probably the number one question we get and complaint, right? Because everybody drives and feels the bumpy roads, and it's rough on their cars, and it's frustrating. And I'm frustrated by it too. And when I told my parents, who live in Ventura, by the way, I said, I'm thinking about putting in for the city manager job. What do you think? Why would you want to do that? And I explained it, and they go, oh, okay. Well, can you fix the roads? And I go, I think I can. And that was the only thing they cared about. They don't use any of the other city services. They're not developers or contractors. They don't come here for permits. They drive on the roads, and they're frustrated that they're in poor condition, a lot of them. And the city has funding. We have Measure O, which is a half-cent sales tax measure that gives us dollars for public safety, for infrastructure improvements. There's some of that money that's dedicated directly to road repair. Our city council sets the budget each year. They've increased our funding for road resurfacing by almost 50% in the coming budget. Our new public works director, one of the first things I talked to him about before he even hired him, we talked about roads and the challenges that we have with the maintenance, and he's a longtime traffic engineer and professional engineer, so he's well experienced and versed in what it takes to manage complex 700-mile infrastructure of roadways. And he's got a number of creative ideas for spreading the dollars that we have for road repair more broadly, so that we can get those roads in better condition quicker, so that we can get into a space where we're maintaining them versus repairing them. The cost to maintain versus repair is dramatically different, and so the investment in the regular maintenance of the roads offsets costs in the long run. So we want to get to that point where we're not having to fix the roads. And I will say, Ventura is an older community. We had a sinkhole on Victoria Avenue, I don't know if you remember, last year or so. That was from a degraded storm drain. So they have these metal pipes under the streets that usher storm water, from the storm drains out to the ocean. And that drain had corroded. The materials from the corrosion had washed away. the pipe ultimately collapsed, and then the road collapsed because you had a void beneath it. And so while we discovered that, fortunately nobody was hurt from that hole that developed there, and we have it now fixed and repaired. Our concern is that we have multiple other places around town where we have those voids starting to form. And so that's a real concern for all of us, especially when we're talking about fixing our roads, making them smooth. I often hear comparisons to some of the newer cities like Thousand Oaks or Camarillo that are a fraction of Ventura's age, and they have newer infrastructure that hasn't reached the massive failure point. And so it's a little different comparison there.
Yeah.
So I just, anyone who's listening who is frustrated by those plates on the road, the road work going on to, the patches on our roads, that's from repairs to pipelines that break to storm drains that collapse. And it's part of living in an older town, unfortunately.
Yeah. This December is going to mark 7 years since the Thomas Fire, and I don't know if you can provide any kind of color on this topic for us. How would you rate the city's preparedness, for the next mega fire, should we see one?
Yeah, I was working in law enforcement when the Thomas Fire hit, and of course lived in Ventura and was here every day, working on the aftermath and the recovery. I would say we were fairly well prepared then. I didn't work for the city of Ventura, but working as the county sheriff, we ran the Office of Emergency Services and the notification system that residents can opt into to make sure they get notified in the event of an emergency. The most important piece of resilience to wildfire emergencies is the communication part. And so the residents have to be engaged enough to opt into these systems that allow us to push notifications to them. So there's a system called VC Alert. It's an opt-in system, meaning you have to sign up for it. I would encourage everybody to sign up for it. I would even recommend you sign up for countywide notifications.
Where would you go to sign up for that?
You can go to, I believe it's readyvc.com.
Okay. And we can put the
readyventuracounty.com.
Okay, and we can put a link to that in the description down below too, so that people can see it.
It's even getting a notification for something that happens in Simi Valley or Thousand Oaks or somewhere else gives you a little bit of situational awareness in case you need to travel or you have a loved one that you need to communicate with. There's not that many messages that come across through there. I get all of them, and I think it's a great way to really stay in the know. We are in the process of updating our city's evacuation plan. The Thomas Fire came in, and of course it impacted largely the hillside properties. Some of those hillside neighborhoods have very narrow streets, one-way traffic really. And so evacuation, especially in the dark, with smoke, with the fear of fire. I mean, there's a lot of things that come into play that make getting out of there more difficult. We've studied what we have locally, ingress and egress points, ingress for emergency responders, egress for residents trying to get out of the way. And that should be completely updated and available to the public here within the next few months. The city's website is an absolute wealth of information. The city of Ventura posts a lot of information out there. If anyone is interested in learning anything about what's going on at the city, especially the evacuation plan, there's ways you can opt into updates that the city will be pushing out. You can access the drafts of plans and weigh in on them. Sometimes there might be something that we haven't considered that a resident might go, hey, what about this or that? And so we're always looking to engage the community to make sure that we have, a broad perspective of what's happening, and something we always keep front of mind. I think in the Thomas Fire, one of the concerns was the loss of water pressure in the hillside homes, and there was the discovery that the pumping stations for our wells that replenished, our water tanks that we, firefighters draw water from, had failed. The electrical had been burned up, and there was no redundant system to provide power to those pumping stations. And so we now have generators on site that will activate in the event of a power failure. And so that's another upgrade that's happened since the Thomas fire.
Okay.
So hopefully, and when I was at the sheriff's office, we bought big helicopters that could drop more water and fly faster to and from water sources. So we are in better shape now than we've ever been to respond and mitigate and rebuild from any kind of natural disaster.
That's great. Here's a softball for you, and instead of calling it a softball, we'll call it a pickleball.
Okay.
As the sport continues to explode in popularity, my parents are playing it, my in-laws are playing it, I'm playing it with my wife.
Yeah.
Does the city have any plans to build dedicated courts just to the sport? Because right now there's a lot of people that are playing on basketball courts or tennis courts, and there's been a little bit of tension lately with those sport players. So what comments can you provide to that?
Yes, I play pickleball myself and enjoy it. My wife hounds me pretty regularly about adding more pickleball courts so she doesn't have to go over to Camarillo to play, which I would love. We would all love. The city applied for grant funding to build the courts. Some courts at Camino Real Park. There's a little bit of a rub with pickleball because it can be noisy. The striking of the ball. I think they even make soft paddles now or soft balls or something to deaden the noise, because that's been a thing in different communities. And so finding the right patch of land is a bit of a challenge. We do have Community Park that's does have a sort of a master plan. Camino Real was a site that we'd really looked at and would like to do something related to pickleball at. It's just a matter of finding the funding and getting it into our capital improvement plan. We applied for a grant. We weren't successful in getting that. Ventura is a fairly affluent community. A lot of grant dollars are awarded to communities that aren't so affluent. And so we're challenged in some ways with getting funding, but we're going to keep at it.
Fantastic.
And we're going to work hard. And there's always public-private partnership opportunities out there. So maybe we'll see some of those with, maybe we'll see some movement with the school district. We've engaged with the district about using some of the school sites as recreational spots for the public. Haven't had a lot of movement there yet, but we're optimistic that maybe in the future we have some opportunities there.
Very good. In closing here, I'd like to know what message do you have to city residents about what city residents can be doing to be better members of the community? Does the city need help from residents for anything in particular, or?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And one of the reasons I love talking about what we're doing is the rumors and partial information, even misinformation, has a great way of circulating in the community. The truth, not so much.
Yeah.
And so I like to speak about what we're doing and why. We just launched Ventura Voices, which is a series of podcasts.
Okay.
It's myself and Heather, our lead PIO for the city. We have an amazing communications team that Heather runs. And one of the things we talked about on day one, maybe even before I got here, I think, was how do we communicate better with the public? How do we push more information out and pull more information in so we're making better decisions? We know what the public's thinking. So we have that. We have our Ventura Vibes newsletter. That's another opt-in tool that interested viewers can go to and sign up for. It's a weekly or bi-weekly newsletter that comes out with the latest on what the city's up to. We speak on the radio, KVTA morning show, 7:40 a.m. every Thursday morning. We got 20 minutes with Tom and Rich, and but I would encourage the community to get their information from credible sources. Social media is not necessarily a credible source unless it's coming from the city itself. I've seen information spun, partial information pushed out, which is partial information that's accurate, but out of context and by itself not accurate. So there's often a story behind everything that you hear. We have an amazing staff that's dedicated to the community. they're educated, they're smart, they care about the city, they want to do good work, and it's kind of like the street thing. How do we do things better? Why is this part of the road bumpy, and why haven't we filled this pothole yet? And so all that information, we have a pothole map online. When somebody called the other day to complain. They said, I'm so mad. This pothole's been here for 5 days, and nobody's done anything about it. And on the pothole map, you can see that we filled like 5,000 potholes in the last month, and that 700 miles of streets and limited materials and resources to get those potholes filled is a challenge. But we want to be able to respond to those community concerns promptly. So we want to hear from the community. We're launching some technology here that will improve the public's ability to communicate with us on issues related to maybe a tree that's dying, a branch that's broken off a tree, a pothole, vandalism, graffiti to a broken city fence, or something that the city would respond out to and take care of. This will have the ability to drop a GPS location, a photo, and then a little message about what the issue is.
That's incredible. What is the timing on something like that, or a project like that?
It should be out at late summer, early fall, I hope.
Okay.
Some of the big technology implementations are a heavy lift and don't always run on schedule.
Yeah.
So we're anxious for that to get out there. The more information for us, the better we can do our job, and so we want people to reach out and connect with us.
Yeah.
So I'd encourage them to do that.
Fantastic. Well, Bill, thank you so much for your time. You've been incredibly generous with us today, and we've covered a lot of ground here that I think Ventura residents and folks that are even considering joining our community and being members of are going to be interested to learn about. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for watching part 2 of my interview with City Manager Bill Ayub. Make sure that you subscribe so that you can be the first to learn about any changes in the Ventura real estate market, and I will see you on next week's video.